Let me show you a potential mistake when working with React.js and how you can avoid it. I have this variable input data created with the useState hook. And then I have a function update data. When this function is called, it basically sets the data, the values for that variable, the input data. And then down here, you can see what I have on the screen on the right hand side, this over here. I have a button, this button, that when clicked, it just calls the function to update the input data values. Let me go ahead and click on that button and see what happens. Yes, it works as expected. We can see that the name, LG, 4K, whatever, 2000, those are the values we have over here. But let's assume that for some reasons, or if certain condition is met, you want to change the description, right? You want to update partially this data, the input data. So that is what I'm trying to simulate here. Certain condition is met, or for whatever reason, you are calling set input data more than once inside this function or within the context of the code execution. So I will click this button once again, and you notice the difference. Let me refresh. The difference wasn't clear. So I'll click the button once again. You will notice that something happened, that this time only description is updated, but not all these guys. So what is the problem here? The problem is the way the useState hook works. If you were expecting that since we set these values here, and down here we are copying everything inside input data before we update only description, that everything, over here is supposed to be LG 4K and the amount supposed to be 2000 over here. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. What happens is that when you update a useState data, React doesn't apply that update instantly, it doesn't update it immediately. What that means is this. Let me do a console.log of input data at line 27 before the next call to set input data. So let me save this and refresh. I will click the button again, then let's check the console. You can see from the console that at line 27, the value of amount is still 0 despite the set input data call here. Description is empty, name is empty. Once again, this is because this change, this update has not been applied. So it is pointless trying to copy set input data in this second call again, because what we are going to have at that point is this. The question now is, how do we solve this kind of problem? A problem where we want to change the value we're updating for the fields depending on certain conditions. Or better put, when we want to call the set input data multiple times within the same context of code execution. So there are different ways to solve this, but let me show you one or two examples. The first solution, which I would prefer to use, is instead of calling this set input data multiple times, I'm going to call it only once. To do that, let me remove this first call and replace it with this. So this has the same data, but I am storing it in input data update. And then I'll come down here to description, where I updated the description. So I can say that the update.description to be equal to this. Finally, after I've made all the updates and changes, I can now call set input data with the updated values. So I'm going to save that, and let me refresh this. Click the button this time. You can see that the updates are applied as expected. Now let's see another way if you really want to call set input data multiple times for whatever reason. So the update state, for when making use of useState hook, it can take a callback function. So instead of just passing this object here like this, what we can do is to have a callback function that gives us the previous state, whatever that previous state is. Let's call it prev state. I'm going to make this an arrow function, and then, so this is a valid arrow function. I have object inside it. Instead of this input data, I'm going to take the previous state, whatever value it is, and apply it like this. So let me do something similar for the second call to set input data. Copy this and apply this bracket here and copy this. Now, if I refresh the page again and click the button, you can see that this time we still get the correct value. So it is up to you the approach you want to use, whether you want to use the first method, that is to call the update state only once, which I think might be the preferred solution, or you want to use this callback function to get the previous state and call the set input data multiple times.